What's up, family? It's E-Millions here, and tonight we're shining a light on a voice that can never be silenced. Malcolm X. See, too many people like to cherry-pick Malcolm's quotes to sound radical, but they never want to talk about the why. And that's why this grassroots speech, is so important. When Malcolm stepped up and called out the so-called Negro Revolution versus the real Black Revolution, he was telling us we can't beg for freedom. We have to build it. He broke down the truth about how systems handpick token leaders to pacify the masses, how they make you feel good while you're still stuck on the same plantation, just with shinier chains. Malcolm gave this speech because he knew our people had been taught to suffer quietly, to turn the other cheek when our communities were under attack. He reminded us, a revolution doesn't ask permission. It demands power, land, and real independence. Now look around today. Same tricks, different era. We still see our communities exploited. We still see figureheads paraded in front of cameras while poverty, police brutality, and division run deep in the streets. But guess what? Malcolm's words are still the blueprint. He said stop fighting each other. Argue it out behind closed doors, then stand together as one strong front. That's how you get real change. Not by singing alone, but by swinging together when necessary. So what can we learn? We learn that you never put your trust in the same system that profits from your oppression. We learn to speak truth, stand together, and fight for the people who can't fight for themselves, because our motto stays the same. For democracy we live for democracy we die for. If you feel this, if you want more, go to emillions.org. Join us as we dig deeper, speak louder, and build real grassroots power. The fight's not over. It's just getting started. More to come. Stay woke, stay moving, stay loud. E-Millions, signing off.
We want to have just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us, we want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand. We all agree tonight, all of the speakers have agreed that America has a very serious problem. Not only does America have a very serious problem, but our people have a very serious problem. America's problem is us. We're her problem. The only reason she has a problem is she doesn't want us here. And every time you look at yourself, be you black, brown, red, or yellow, a so-called Negro, you represent a person who poses such a serious problem for America because you're not wanted. Once you face this as a fact, then you can start plotting a course that will make you appear intelligent instead of unintelligent. What you and I need to do is learn to forget our differences. When we come together, we don't come together as Baptists or Methodists. You don't catch hell because you're a Baptist, and you don't catch hell because you're a Methodist. You don't catch hell because you're a Methodist or Baptist. You don't catch hell because you're a Democrat or a Republican. You don't catch hell because you're a Mason or an Elk. And you sure don't catch hell because you're an American, because if you was an American, you wouldn't catch no hell. You catch hell because you're a black man. You catch hell. All of us catch hell for the same reason. So we are all black people, so-called Negroes, second-class citizens, descendants of enslaved people. You are nothing but an ex-slave. You might not like hearing that, but what else are you? You are the descendants of slaves. You didn't come here on the Mayflower. You came here on slave ships in chains like livestock. And you were brought here by the same people who came on the Mayflower. You were brought here by the so-called pilgrims or founding fathers. They were the ones who brought you here. We have a common enemy. We share this. We have a common oppressor, a common exploiter, and a common discriminator. But once we all see that we face the same enemy, then we can unite on what we have in common. And what we have most in common is that enemy, the system that keeps us oppressed. Some of you may think that not all of them are enemies. Time will show you the truth. Instead of airing our differences in public, we have to remember we're the same family. And when you have a family argument, you don't take it to the sidewalk. If you do, people call you uncouth, unrefined, uncivilized. If you can't settle it at home, you settle it privately. You get behind closed doors and work it out. Then when you come back out, you show a united front. That's what we need in our communities, in our cities, in our states. We have to stop exposing our divisions in front of people who profit from them. Keep those who want to divide us out of our spaces, number one. Then sit down and talk honestly with each other. That's all you have to do. I want to share a few thoughts about the difference between a black revolution and a so-called Negro revolution. There is a difference. Are they the same? And if they're not, what's the difference? What makes a black revolution different from a Negro revolution? First, what is a revolution? Sometimes I'm inclined to believe that many of our people are using this word revolution loosely without taking careful consideration of what this word actually means and what its historic characteristics are. When you study the historic nature of revolutions, the motive of a revolution, the objective of a revolution, and the result of a revolution, and the methods used in a revolution, you may change words. You may devise another program. You may change your goal and you may change your mind. Look at the American Revolution in 1776. That revolution was for what? For land. Why did they want land? Independence. How was it carried out? Bloodshed. Number one, it was based on land, the basis of independence. And the only way they could get it was bloodshed. The French Revolution, what was it based on? The landless against the landlord. What was it for? Land. How did they get it? Bloodshed. Was no love lost? Was no compromise? Was no negotiation? I'm telling you, you don't know what a revolution is, because when you find out what it is, you'll get back in the alley. You'll get out of the way. The Russian Revolution, what was it based on? Land. The landless against the landlord. How did they bring it about? Bloodshed. You haven't got a revolution that doesn't involve bloodshed, and you're afraid to bleed. I said, you're afraid to bleed. As long as the white man sent you to Korea, you bled. He sent you to Germany, you bled. He sent you to the South Pacific to fight the Japanese, and you bled. You shed your blood for white people, but when your own churches are bombed and little black girls are murdered, suddenly you have no fight left in you. You bleed when the white man says bleed. You bite when he says bite. You bark when he says bark. I hate to say this about us, but it's the truth. How can you be nonviolent in Mississippi when you are willing to fight so fiercely in Korea? How can you justify being peaceful in Mississippi and Alabama when your churches are burning and your children are dying, yet you were violent against Hitler, Tojo, and people you didn't even know overseas? If violence is wrong in America, then it's wrong overseas too. If it's wrong to defend black women, black children, black families by any means necessary here, then it's wrong for America to draft us and train us to be violent somewhere else. But if it's right for America to draft us, arm us, and send us to fight in her name, then it is right for you and me to do what we must to protect our own people right here at home. The white man knows exactly what a revolution is. He knows the black revolution is global. It's rising in Asia. It's rising in Africa. It's showing up in Latin America. The Cuban Revolution, now that's a revolution. They overthrew an entire system. Revolution is happening in Asia. Revolution is happening in Africa. And the white man is panicking because he sees it moving through Latin America. So how do you think he'll react when you finally learn what a real revolution means? You don't really understand what a revolution is. If you did, you wouldn't throw that word around so lightly. A revolution is bloody. A revolution is confrontational. A revolution does not compromise. What do you mean separate? Where is there a better home than this? Where can I wear better clothes than this? Where can I eat better food than this? That was the house servant mentality. Back then, he was called a house servant, and that's what we still call him today because we still have some people with that house servant mindset running around here. This modern house servant loves his master. He wants to live close to him. He'll pay 3 times as much as the house is worth just to live near his master and then brag, I'm the only black person out here. I'm the only one on my job. I'm the only one in this school. You're nothing but a house servant. And if someone comes to you right now and says, let's separate, you say the same thing that the house servant said on the plantation. What do you mean separate? Leave America. Leave this good white man. Where am I going to get a better job than I have here? That's exactly what you say. I didn't leave anything in Africa. That's what you say. But the truth is, you left your mind in Africa. On that same plantation, there was the field worker. The field worker, those were the masses. There were always more people working the fields than there were in the house. The field worker suffered terribly. He ate scraps. In the house, they ate the best parts of the hog. The field worker got nothing but what was left of the insides. They call it chitlins nowadays. Back then, they called them what they were, guts. That's what you were, a gut eater. And some of you are still gut eaters today. The field worker was beaten from morning to night. He lived in a shack, a small hut. He wore old cast-off clothes. He hated his master. I repeat, he hated his master. He was aware. The house servant loved his master. But that field worker, remember, they were the majority. and they hated the master. A revolution overturns and destroys anything that stands in its way. Meanwhile, some of you are just sitting here like a bump on a log saying, I'm going to love these people no matter how much they hate me. No, what you need is a real revolution. Who's ever heard of a revolution where people just lock arms, as Reverend Klieg said so well, singing, We Shall Overcome? Tell me, you don't do that in a revolution. You're too busy fighting. A revolution is about land. A true revolutionary wants land so they can build their own nation, an independent nation. But these so-called leaders aren't asking for a nation. They're trying to crawl right back onto the plantation. To understand this, you have to go back to what that young brother mentioned. The house servant and the field worker back during slavery, there were two kinds of slaves, the house servant and the field worker. The house servants lived in the master's house, dressed fairly well and ate well because they ate the master's leftovers. They might have lived in the attic or the basement, but they were still close to the master, and they loved the master more than the master loved himself. They'd even risk their lives to save the master's house quicker than the master would. If the master said, we've got a good house here, the house servant would say, yeah, we sure do have a good house here. Whenever the master said we, the house servant said we too. That's how you could always spot one. If the master's house caught on fire, the house servant would work harder than anyone to put it out. If the master got sick, the house servant would say, what's wrong, boss? We sick. We sick. He identified so closely with the master that he forgot himself. And if you came to him and said, let's run away, let's escape, let's break free, the house servant would look at you like you'd lost your mind. When the house caught on fire, he didn't try and put it out. That field Negro prayed for a wind, for a breeze. When the master got sick, the field Negro prayed that he'd die. If someone comes sick to the field Negro and said, let's separate, let's run, he didn't say, where are we going? He'd say, any place is better than here. You've got field Negroes in America today. I'm a field Negro. The masses are the field Negroes. When they see this man's house on fire, you don't hear these little Negroes talking about our government is in trouble. They say the government is in trouble. Imagine a Negro, our government. I even heard one say our astronauts. They won't even let him near the plant. And our astronauts, our Navy. That's a Negro that's out of his mind. That's a Negro that's out of his mind. Just as the slave master of that day used Tom, the house Negro, to keep the field Negroes in check, the same old slave master today has Negroes who are nothing but modern Uncle Toms, 20th century Uncle Toms, to keep you and me in check, keep us under control, keep us passive and peaceful and nonviolent. That's Tom making you nonviolent. It's like when you go to the dentist and the man's going to take your tooth. You're going to fight him when he starts pulling, so he squirts some stuff in your jaw called Novocaine to make you think they're not doing anything to you. So you sit there, and because you've got all of that Novocaine in your jaw, you suffer peacefully. Blood running all down your jaw, and you don't know what's happening because someone has taught you to suffer peacefully. There's nothing in our holy book, in the Quran, and that teaches us to suffer quietly. Our faith teaches us to be smart, be peaceful, be respectful, follow the law, and treat everyone with courtesy. But if someone puts their hands on you, you have every right to defend yourself. That's a good teaching. In fact, that's the old-time belief our elders used to talk about. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a head for a head, and a life for a life. That's fair. And the only people who get upset about that kind of teaching are those who want to prey on you. This is how it is with the white man in America. He's like a wolf, and you're treated like sheep. Anytime a leader or a pastor teaches you not to run from that wolf, but also not to fight back, that person is a traitor to you. Don't give up your life for nothing. Protect your life. It's the most valuable thing you have. And if you ever have to give it up, make sure it's a fair exchange. Back in slavery times, the slave master would take a man like Tom, dress him up nicely, feed him well, and even give him a bit of an education, just enough. He'd give him a long coat and a top hat, and then use him to control the other enslaved people by making them look up to him. That same strategy is used today by the same system. They take a black person, build him up, make him visible, turn him into a celebrity, and then let him speak for everyone, calling him a leader for all black people. When Martin Luther King failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia, the civil rights movement in America hit rock bottom. King nearly lost his influence as a leader. Financially, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was in trouble too. And beyond money, they were losing support from the people after failing to desegregate Albany. There's nothing in our book, the Quran, that teaches us to accept suffering quietly. Our faith teaches us to be smart, be peaceful, be respectful, obey the law, and treat everyone with courtesy. But if someone attacks you, you have every right to defend yourself with equal force. That's real faith. That's the same old school principle our elders used to talk about. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a head for a head, and a life for a life. That's fair. And the only people who resent that kind of teaching are the predators, the wolves, who hope to make you their prey. It's the same situation today with the white man in America. He acts like a wolf while you're treated like sheep. And anytime a leader or a preacher tells you not to run from this wolf, but also not to defend yourself, that person is betraying you. Don't throw your life away for nothing. Protect it. It's the most valuable thing you have. And if you ever must give it up, make sure it's a fair trade. Back during slavery, the slave master would take someone like Tom, dress him well, feed him well, and give him just enough education to seem special. He'd put a fancy coat and top hat on him and make the other slaves look up to him. Then he used Tom to control everyone else. The same strategy is used today by the same system. They pick out a black person, make him prominent, build him up, put him in the spotlight, and turn him into a celebrity. Then they present him as the spokesperson for all black people, as a so-called leader. When Martin Luther King Jr. failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia, the civil rights movement hit its lowest point. King nearly lost his standing as a leader. Even financially, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was struggling, and beyond the money, they were losing trust with the people after that failure in Albany. Other Negro civil rights leaders of so-called national stature became fallen idols. As they became fallen idols, began to lose their prestige and influence, local Negro leaders began to stir up the masses. In Cambridge, Maryland, Gloria Richardson, in Danville, Virginia, and other parts of the country, local leaders began to stir up our people at the grassroots level. This was never done by these Negroes whom you recognize of national stature. They controlled you, but they never incited you or excited you. They controlled you, they contained you, they kept you on the plantation. As soon as King failed in Birmingham, Negroes took to the streets. King got out and went out to California to a big rally and raised about, I don't know how many thousands of dollars. He come sick to Detroit and had a march and raised some more thousands of dollars. And recall, right after that, Roy Wilkins attacked King, accused King and the core Congress of Racial Equality of starting trouble everywhere and then making the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, get them out of jail and spend a lot of money. And then they accused King and core of raising all the money and not paying it back. This happened. I've got it in documented evidence in the newspaper. Roy started attacking King, and King started attacking Roy, and Farmer started attacking both of them. And as these Negroes of national stature began to attack each other, they began to lose their control of the Negro masses. And Negroes was sick out there in the streets. They was sick talking about how we was sick going to march on Washington. By the way, right at that time, Birmingham had exploded, and the Negroes in Birmingham, remember, they also exploded. They began to stab the crackers in the back and bust them upside their head. Yes, they did. That's when Kennedy sent in the troops down in Birmingham. And right after that, Kennedy got on the television and said, this is a moral issue. That's when he said he was going to put out a civil rights bill. And when he mentioned civil rights bill and the Southern crackers started talking about how they were going to boycott or filibuster it, then the Negroes started talking about what? We're going to march on Washington, march on the Senate, march on the White House, march on the Congress, and tie it up, bring it to a halt. Don't let the government proceed. They even said they was sick going out to the airport and lay down on the runway and don't let no airplanes land. I'm telling you what they said. That was revolution. That was revolution. That was the Black Revolution. It was the grassroots out there in the street. It scared the white man to death, scared the white power structure in Washington, D.C. to death. I was there. When they found out that this black steamroller was going to come down on the Capitol, they called in Wilkins, they called in Randolph, they called in these national Negro leaders that you respect and told them, call it off. Kennedy said, look, you all letting this thing go too far. And old Tom said, boss, I can't stop it because I didn't start it. I'm telling you what they said. They said, I'm not even in it, much less at the head of it. They said, these Negroes are doing things on their own. They're running ahead of us. And that old shrewd fox, he said, well, if you all aren't in it, I'll put you in it. I'll put you at the head of it. I'll endorse it. I'll welcome it. I'll help it. I'll join it. As soon as they got the setup organized, the white man made available to them top public relations experts, opened the news media across the country at their disposal, and then they begin to project these big six as the leaders of the march. Originally, they weren't even in the march. You was sick talking this march talk on Hastings Street. Is Hastings Street still here? On Hastings Street, you was sick talking the march talk on Lenox Avenue and out on what you call it, Fillmore Street and Central Avenue and 32nd Street and 63rd Street. That's where the march talk was being talked. But the white man put the big six at the head of it, made them the march. They became the march, they took it over, and the first move they made after they took it over, they invited Walter Reuther, a white man. They invited a priest, a rabbi, and an old white preacher. Yes, an old white preacher, the same white element that put Kennedy in power. Labor, the Catholics, the Jews, and liberal Protestants, the same clique that put Kennedy in power, joined the March on Washington. It's just like when you've got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too strong. What you do, you integrate it with cream, you make it weak. If you pour too much cream in, you won't even know you ever had coffee. It used to be hot, it becomes cool. It used to be strong, it becomes weak. It used to wake you up, now it'll put you to sleep. This is what they did with the March on Washington. They joined it, they didn't integrate it, they infiltrated it, they joined it, became a part of it, took it over, and as they took it over, it lost its militancy. They ceased to be angry, they ceased to be hot, they ceased to be uncompromising. Why, it even ceased to be a march. It became a picnic, a circus, nothing but a circus with clowns and all. You had one right here in Detroit. I saw it on television, with clowns leading it, white clowns and black clowns. I know you don't like what I'm saying, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because I can prove what I'm saying. If you think I'm telling you wrong, you bring me Martin Luther King and A. Philip Randolph and James Farmer and those other three and see if they'll deny it over a microphone. No, it was a sellout. It was a takeover. When James Baldwin came in from Paris, they wouldn't let him talk because they couldn't make him go by the script. Burt Lancaster read the speech that Baldwin was supposed to make. They wouldn't let Baldwin get up there because they know Baldwin's liable to say anything. They controlled it so tight, they told those Negroes what time to hit town, how to come, where to stop, what signs to carry, what song to sing, what speech they could make, and what speech they couldn't make, and then told them to get out town by sundown, and every one of those Toms was out of town by sundown. Now, I know you don't like my saying this, but I can back it up. It was a circus, a performance that beat anything Hollywood could ever do, the performance of the year. Reuther and those other three devils should get an Academy Award for the best actors because they acted like they really loved Negroes and fooled a whole lot of Negroes, and the 6 Negro leaders should get an award too for the best supporting cast.
All right, family. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in, for listening with open ears and an open heart. It means everything that you give your time and your attention to the real truth. Because that's how change starts. One mind at a time, one voice at a time, one action at a time. Always remember, we do this for the people who can't, for the ones who don't have the mic, for the ones stuck in the shadows. For democracy we live, for democracy we die, for. Before we break down this big beautiful bill, the good, the bad, and the ugly, let's take a moment to hear a word from our sponsors who help us keep this grassroots message alive and unfiltered. Stay locked in. The truth is coming. More to come, only at amillions.org. Stay woke, stay moving, stay loud.
Here. It's one of the biggest and most controversial bills of his presidency, and now it has been signed into a law on 4th July. Now it is called One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So what's inside this bill? What promises did Trump make, and what's actually happening now? Let's break it down. Last year during his campaign, Trump made some bold promises. He said, no tax on tips, no tax on senior social security, no tax on overtime pay. He also promised to renew his 2017 tax cuts, adjust the SALT cap, shut down tax breaks for billionaire sports team owners, close the carried interest loophole, and offer tax cuts for Made in America products. Basically make it the biggest tax cut in US history, especially for the middle class. Big words, right? Fast forward today, the bill has passed the House, then got some modifications in the Senate, and even President Trump has signed it. So it is a law now. So what did the American citizens actually get? Number 1, no tax on tips. If you work in a job where you get tips like waiters, delivery drivers, barbers, from 2025 to 2028, up to $25,000 of tips will be tax free, not directly removed, but through a tax deduction. Which means you first report your full income, let's say your salary plus tips, then you subtract up to $25,000 in tips from your taxable income. So you still report the tips, but the taxable part of your income is reduced. So let's say you earn $100,000 in salary and $10,000 in tips. You will report $110,000, but you will get to deduct the $10,000 tips. So your taxable income is still $100,000. So the smart move by the government is you are still reporting tips, but you get to reduce your taxable income. Think of it as a carrot approach instead of a stick. Rather than cracking down on unreported tips, which is hard to monitor, now the US government is saying, hey, if you report them, we will reward you by not taxing the first $25,000. Many people in the US don't fully report their tips, especially when those tips are received in cash. Tips through cards are automatically tracked by employers and reported to the IRS. Second point, no tax on overtime pay. Same logic applies here. You work extra hours, overtime pay up to $12,500 per year is tax free from 2025 to 2028. Again, it's a deduction, not an exemption, but still useful. For many working class families, these two deductions alone could mean more take home money. Since there are two main types of extra work, if you are doing overtime in formal jobs, all working hours, including overtime, are tracked and taxed. But in side gigs, informal extra work, this is where underreporting usually happens. So again, it is to incentivize to come clean and report your every earnings. By the way, when I keep mentioning the years, it means these provisions will expire after December 31st, 2028. Third point, car loan interest deduction. This one is interesting, especially for people who buy cars. From 2025 to 2028, you can deduct up to $10,000 per year in car loan interest, but only if your car was assembled in the US and it has to be a new car, not used. Imported cars will not get this benefit. Even electric cars assembled in the US are eligible. It's kind of like saying buy American, get rewarded. Again, the main idea behind this policy is to incentivize Americans to buy products made in the United States, thereby supporting domestic manufacturing and job creation. Fourth point, senior citizen tax boost. Trump wanted to make senior citizens Social Security income tax free. It is a monthly money that retired Americans, usually over 65 years of age, get from the US government, like a pension. These people have to pay their pension during their whole working life through Social Security tax under Federal Insurance Contribution Act. And after retirement, they get regular payments per month. That's called Social Security income. So Trump wanted to make Social Security income 100% tax free. But that didn't happen because Congress rules did not allow it. Congress did not allow a full exemption because they feel this will reduce federal revenue to a great extent. This will increase the federal deficit and debt. So, what they did was, instead of removing it completely, they gave senior citizens a little tax relief. People aged 65 and older will get an extra $6,000 added to their standard deduction. So, the bigger your deduction, the less tax you pay. Let's say you are a senior earning $40,000 a year. Normally, the standard deduction might be around $14,000. With the new rule, you get $14,000 plus $6,000 is equal to $20,000 deduction. Now, this starts in 2025 and goes until 2028. If you see, this is not what Trump promised, but still helps lower the tax burden for many retirees. Point number 5, SALT deduction cap raised. SALT here means state and local taxes. These are the taxes you pay to your state government, like California or New York, and your local city town. When you file your federal taxes, you're allowed to deduct some of what you already paid in state and local taxes. So you don't get taxed twice on the same money. Previously, you could deduct only $10,000 in state and local taxes. For example, let's say you live in New York or California and paid, say, $25,000 in property plus income tax. You only deduct $10,000. Now, the new rule says if your yearly income is under $500,000, you can now deduct up to $40,000 in SALT instead of just $10,000. Let me give you a real life example. Suppose you earn $150,000 in a year. You paid $30,000 in total state and property taxes. Under old rules, you could only deduct $10,000. Under new rules, you can now deduct all $30,000 and maximum up to $40,000. But if you make more than $500,000, this benefit does not apply. So if you see, it helps middle and upper middle class people in high tax states. They save more on their federal taxes. Now, this will slowly phase back to $10,000 by 2029. Sixth point, child tax credit, CTC. For non US people, the child tax credit is the money the US government gives parents to help them raise kids. But then there are some conditions. Your child has to be under 17 years old, has to live with you more than half the year, and should have a valid social security number. Right now, it is $2,000 per child. This new bill increases it to $2,200 per child permanently. Starting in 2026, it will adjust to inflation too. But here's the catch, the child tax credit is based on the parent's income level. To qualify for any refundable portion of the child tax credit, a family must have at least $2,500 per year in earned income. If it is below, you are not eligible. And for the non US people, to your surprise, let me tell you, there are millions of people in the US who earn $2,500 or less per year. So this policy helps, but not equally for everyone. In a nutshell, the higher your income, the smaller your child tax credit. And after a certain point, you may get nothing at all. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, some of the poorest kids don't get the full child tax credit because their families don't make enough income to qualify for the refundable portion. These two are the truth behind the child tax credit. Point number 7, Medicaid reforms. Now, this is a big one. Remember, Democrats, especially Obama, has consistently advocated for Medicaid expansion. So, to qualify for Medicaid, you need to be aged between 19 to 64. And then you must either work, volunteer, or go to school, or if you are in some job training, you need to work at least 80 hours per month. Then you will need to show proof of income and residency twice a year. Now, these are some stricter eligibility rules that have been added. Trump has decided to cut $800 billion for Medicaid over the next 10 years. Now it is said that up to 12 million Americans could lose access to healthcare as a result of the cuts and policy changes. Also, immigrants, including some refugees, will face stricter rules. And then some states that offer healthcare to undocumented immigrants will get penalized. So, if you see, the critics to this policy would be unemployed, racial minorities, immigrants and refugee, religious minorities, Democrats and left leaning groups, healthcare advocates and professionals, rural Americans. This broad and diverse demographic group, along with Democrats, who are the political head, are the real critics to this Medicaid reforms. And those who are in support say it encourages self reliance and responsibility. Work builds dignity, prevents misuse, saves taxpayers' money, pushes the states to reform. At the end of the day, Medicaid reform is not a ban, it's a shift. The goal is not to take healthcare away, but to tie benefits to effort. Point number 8, policy changes in SNAP. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program or food stamps. The same work rule applies here. You have to work or volunteer, go to school, or if you're in some job training, you need to work for at least 80 hours per month to receive SNAP. Now, inflation adjustment to SNAP will also slow down because food prices rise with time. The new law includes major cuts to SNAP funding, about $186 billion over the next decade. That means there will be reduced benefits for millions of Americans, especially low income families, working families, and children. And again, people are split on whether this is fair or harmful. Point number 9, student loan limits. There is no student loan debt cancellation, but borrowing limits are now imposed. That is, graduate students can borrow up to a lifetime cap of $100,000 in federal loans. And medical and law students, that is professional degrees, have a higher cap, up to $200,000 in total federal loans, including any undergraduate borrowing. Now, previously, students could borrow up to the full cost of attendance through Grad Plus loan scheme with no limit. The new law eliminates the Grad Plus program and replaces it with strict borrowing limit. Point number 10, energy policy shift. Now, green energy takes a hit. This new bill reduces tax credits for solar panels and other green energy upgrades. Instead, there is a shift in support towards oil, gas, and nuclear energy. President Trump has stated the US will rely on oil, gas, coal, and nuclear to meet energy needs. Some states can make people pay extra money if they use a lot of electricity, especially those with home solar panels or who use a lot of electricity. This helps the state cover the cost of running the electric grid and make up for lost money when people use less electricity from the power company. Point number 11, retirement changes to Roth IRA and TRSA. In America, IRA is a special savings account that helps people save for retirement and pay less tax while doing it. So basically, you put in pre-tax money, the money you don't pay tax on it now. You pay tax later when you withdraw in retirement. This was the traditional way. Now you put in money after taxes, but then your money grows tax-free And you don't pay any tax when you withdraw after age 59 and a half. This new way is called Roth IRA. Now, what happens is that some high income people are not allowed to directly use Roth IRAs because they earn too much. And they seem to have found a loophole. So they use a trick. They first put money in a traditional IRA, which is allowed for all, and then immediately convert it into a Roth IRA. This is called the backdoor method. But the new rule says this backdoor Roth IRA strategy ends in 2026. So high earners may lose this loophole. Instead, Trump has brought a new rule which is called TRSA, Trump Retirement and Savings Account. Now there is no income limit to contribute in this account. You can invest up to $5,000 per child until the year the child turns 18. The US government will give $1,000 per baby born between 2025 to 2028. Funds must be invested in US stock market index funds. So basically, you are investing in Trump's account. Trump is going to be your fund manager. It's kind of like planting a seed for your child's future. For example, $1,000 at birth could grow up to $148,000 by age 65. Point number 12, benefits for the wealthy. Rich people are not left out. Those making $100 million per year will get a 3% after tax income increase, which equals about $75,000 per year extra. And then the SALT deduction cap is raised to $40,000 for individuals. If you are wealthy, you usually donate to charity and then deduct the amount from your taxable income, right? But now, under the new law, rich people won't get as much tax benefit from donating to charity as they used to. The deduction still exists, but it is less valuable for them. This is meant to stop the ultra rich from using huge donations as a way to avoid paying taxes. Some wealthy people donate to charity not just out of kindness, but also for strategic reasons like tax saving, influencing policy or public opinion through foundations or non-profit, then building reputation or legacy, gaining access to elite circles, politics or media, then pushing agendas like funding think tank, lobbying groups or advocacy organizations. So what the government is trying to do now is that by reducing the value of charitable deductions for the rich, the government is basically saying you can still give, but we are not going to reward you as much in tax breaks, especially if it is part of a power game. And while charitable deductions shrink a bit for the rich, but if you are a middle income person and you don't itemize deductions, you just take the standard deduction, then you normally get no extra benefit for giving to charity. But now you can deduct up to $2,000 in charitable donations even if you don't itemize your taxes. So at the end of the day, what's the total cost? The bill is estimated to add over $3 trillion to the deficit in 10 years. But 10 years is a long period. So how will the US government cover the deficit? The primary way this deficit is covered is through additional government borrowing. That means more money printing, which increases the national debt as well as inflation. So who is going to be the real winner? The bigger benefits of this new bill will be for those who own real estate, stocks, Bitcoin or gold. Now, if you see, not a single Democrat voted for this bill. But since Republican controls the House, Senate and presidency, they passed it. It is the same way how Democrats passed the Biden's Inflation Reduction Act without Republican votes on August 7, 2022. And what about the public? Some Republicans love it, some hate it. Some Democrats oppose it strongly, a few actually support parts of it. So yes, it's politics as usual, but the impacts, they are real, they are big, and they are coming very soon. This bill touches everything from an American citizen's paycheck to their parents' retirement, from their grocery bills to their kids' future savings. Some say it's the most pro-worker, pro-family bill ever. Others say it's a gift to the rich and a disaster waiting to happen. In the end, this bill could be a lifeline or a loaded trap. One thing is for sure, it's not just policy anymore. It's personal. Either it secures America's future or lights the fuse on a delayed death bomb. This was the brief summary of the US President Donald Trump's big beautiful bill. I hope you found this video informative. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.